like to bring to the stage Josh Dreyer. Josh has been a fan of cars since he could talk and a fan of Formula One for the past 7 years, and he wishes he could be a professional race car driver, but clearly he is just too tall.
Clearly.
This thing kind of makes me nervous. All right, Formula One. Anybody know what Formula One is? Yes. Yes? Oh my God, like 6 of you. That's awesome. When you think auto racing, what is it that you think of?
NASCAR.
Top Gear. That's impressive. That's like a video game. No, but really, what do you think of?
Josh Dreyer.
What? Sprint car? Okay, well that's close. What I think of is NASCAR, right? NASCAR. Where did NASCAR start? NASCAR started with
Days of Thunder.
No, not Days of Thunder. Yeah, nice try. No, it has its roots in moonshiners. Okay, NASCAR started with moonshiners that bored out the engines of their old 1930s cars after Prohibition to make the cars faster, in order to outrun the police. Okay, that's how NASCAR gets started. Formula One actually has its roots in the late 1800s in France, back in the early days of the European Grand Prix, or Grand Prix. This is actually a photo I took at the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart, in Germany. And this is actually really going fast. All right, these Matchbox cars are actually all Formula One cars in a private warehouse of Mercedes-Benz just outside of Stuttgart. So Stuttgart Formula One started in about 1950, which is where Formula One got its start. The most famous Formula One team, obviously, Ferrari. The most famous driver, 7-time champion, Michael Schumacher, if any of you have ever heard of him. Ferrari, obviously, very well known, the most popular team in Formula One today. Also, the only team that's been active since Formula One began in 1950. This beautiful gentleman is Bernie Ecclestone, who took hold of Formula One in 1970 and basically took it to where it is today. So when in 1970 it was kind of a random it was an auto racing sport. It's the top of its sport. But in 1970, Bernie Ecclestone took it commercially to where it is today with 24 drivers and 12 teams. Excuse me. All right, so why are there only 12 teams? Cost. Cost is the only reason why there's only 12 teams. Half of the money they spend is on engines. Half of that money is $300 million, wait for it, a year. That's a year. This is the cost for a year. What do the costs contain? First of all, the chassis. The chassis of the car basically is, for all practical purposes, the car itself. What does it take to make a car? You need a wind tunnel to do your research and development, because your Formula One car has to be the fastest car, and hundredths of a second make a difference. The engine, of course, which we already touched on, which is $300 million approximately. That's not to develop one engine, that's to develop the prototype engine and then the hand manufacture of subsequent engines, of course. This is an example of a Mercedes-Benz engine. You can see the carbon fiber. The steering wheel, which this was a steering wheel off a Renault Formula One car, which a little Renault fan is holding. This steering wheel actually controls for the driver everything about the car. And this costs up to $100,000 a piece for just the steering wheel. You have a team, which there's approximately 18 guys, 3 guys for each wheel, 2 guys for front and the back, and at least 3 or 4 to, this is the fuel line right here that's fueling this Ferrari right here. So that's an additional cost as well as the driver. Tires are an interesting thing in Formula One. Tires, for each Formula One race, you're typically allowed 2 different kinds of tire. So you typically the Formula One driver or the Formula One team only changes tires on their cars twice, then there's typically 2 different kinds of tires they have to use. And of course, there's crashes. With this multi-million-dollar car, just a little bump can set the Formula One car, because it's so aerodynamically engineered, it can, if a little bit of air, if it hits a little bump, it can take off and completely disintegrate, which of course destroys all your work. Circuits, which is what the Formula One calls tracks. Right now in the 2011 season, there are going to be 20 different circuits, pending 2 circuits being approved. This is an example of the circuit in Singapore. The season goes from March to November, so it's basically almost all year round. This is the most famous circuit of them all. This is in Monaco, which is south of France. This is one of the oldest and one of the only street tracks still in use. And as you can see, people in their yachts can actually watch the races while they go on. This is a Google Maps aerial view of what is going to be in 2012 the United States F1 track. At the current time, we do not have in the United States a track that's available for F1 use. There's a track just built outside of Austin that's going to serve that for us. This is my favorite team, so I wanted to throw this in there. McLaren, Lewis Hamilton, 2008 champion. He's from Britain. He's also the first person of African descent to race in Formula One. So yeah, and there he is taking the magnum of mum the hard way. So that's basically it. Any questions, feel free to ask me, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you about it.